Nama Narayan and welcome. Welcome back, courageous yogis. So great to see you. Thank you for being here today. And we are just about to get started on our second session. So I hope that you can see the slide here that I prepared for you today. And today, the discussion is on our favorite topic, Yoga Nidra, and developing immunity to the world through Yoga Nidra. So this is helping us to be able to deal with the challenges that we face, daily challenges in life, and to improve your quality of life, to improve your quality of living, to help you to overcome those greatest obstacles and struggles that we face internally for an improved life on all levels. So thank you everybody for joining me. This is our second live broadcast, and I'm really looking forward to this series. I think about this, I'm looking forward to this all week long. And I feel really blessed to each and every one of you that joins me for this as well. So thank you so much for being here. Today, we're talking about developing inner immunity to the world. And I want to discuss exactly what that means. The teachings and philosophy of yoga show us how to live in harmony with the world, with nature, and with ourselves. Yoga teaches us radical tolerance, meaning that we must ultimately learn to include and embrace everything in the entire universe and oppose nothing. During Yoga Nidra, you may be asked to listen to the various sounds and noises in your environment, for example, right? What is the purpose of this exercise? Listening to sounds in your environment. So really, there's many levels to this. On the one hand, by asking you to listen, you must interrupt your current thought patterns and focus in real time on this present moment. However, there is a more profound, deeper reason for this exercise as well. By focusing on anything that may be an obstacle during meditation, the mind eventually loses interest in it and wants to go on to something else. However, if we repress anything, if we try to avoid anything or ignore anything, it has a tendency to come back again and again and disturb your meditation and influence your thoughts and your level of inner silence. So the first point that I want to emphasize here is this. Repression does not work. Repressing things simply does not work. By repressing uncomfortable thoughts, emotions, memories, etc., into the background of our mind, we are not freed from them, but they go on to influence us unconsciously. Isn't that right? A very large percent of who we are actually, meaning our personalities, is on this level of the unconscious mind. And a very large part of meditation, including Yoga Nidra, is to bring that content from the unconscious mind into the light of awareness, to know yourself. When you are aware of something that you had previously been repressing, then it loses some power over you. Just the very act of awareness begins sorting it all out for you. You don't even need to subject yourself to hours of psychoanalysis. Just go on revealing, knowing, understanding, and illumining whatever is there in the darkest corners of your psyche. Illumine every nook and cranny. Bring the light of consciousness into the inner core of your being. And eventually we discover there tremendous peace, tremendous bliss, and the highest contentment possible. So the problem is that society really reinforces this idea of repressing, especially modern society. But the light of consciousness, of neutral self-awareness, illumines all the obstacles and helps to sort them out at the same time. Therefore, your role is just to continue expanding your awareness and developing knowingness and this higher understanding. The example I use often is like a dark room full of people, a crowded dark room. You turn on the light and everyone instantly sees the exits, the furniture, and can make their way through the space without needing to be micromanaged. So awareness really kind of sorts out and figures out everything for us. We just have to bring it out of the darkness of the psyche, stop repressing, and have the courage to face it. The problem is that society reinforces this idea of repression, perhaps today more than ever, in my lifetime anyway, rather than looking and being comfortable at looking at alternative opinions that are not in agreement with our own, and tolerating them as a vital part of any democracy, there's a huge tendency to want to cancel, censor, and silence anyone that may even cause offense. When people say, "How are you?" what do they really want to hear? Honesty? No. What everyone wants to hear is, "I'm fine, thanks, how are you?" People who answer that question honestly are seen as being socially awkward or socially unintelligent, needy, or even a bore, self-absorbed. We are expected to put our best faces forward and never let them see you show any sign of weakness, or in many cases, even sensitivity. People who hide their problems and always put on a happy face are admired, even though we all know this kind of behavior is toxic, don't we? We admire those people who can do that, but we think that they probably also maybe have some very self-destructive tendencies as well. Oftentimes we see them in alcoholics and things like this. This is the tendency of wanting to never show any kind of weakness. Men are criticized for not showing their emotions, but then ostracized when they do. We are constantly being told to dress up our pain, sorrow, and frustration. And perhaps some of that is needed for a functioning society, but then there must be some avenue to ventilate and to release and to let out the steam. So I do actually recommend, on the one hand, that we do not allow ourselves to lose our composure while in public, because when it happens once, then it becomes easier and easier to happen again and again. However, when we are in the safety and comfort of our meditation practice or of our yoga nidra practice, we can give ourselves total permission to express all that pent-up nervous energy. While in yoga nidra, you may laugh or cry hysterically. And in that case, I totally advise you to surrender to whatever is arising from within. While in the safety of your yoga nidra practice, you can allow yourself to feel fully, to let it all out, but while maintaining that neutral higher awareness, witness consciousness, or sakshibhav in Sanskrit, meaning you're observing all this internal phenomenon occurring within yourself as if from the perspective of a completely detached third-party observer, reminding yourself, I am not these thoughts, I am not these emotions, I am not these repressed feelings. You can actually use those exact words during yoga nidra and tell yourself those exact words during yoga nidra. Try it. Anytime you're feeling an uncomfortable experience during yoga nidra, first identify what level it is on, either the body, the emotions, the mind, or even the psyche. Then tell yourself, I am not this physical pain. I am not these emotions. I am not these thoughts. I am not these feelings and repressed items coming up from the psyche. By disidentifying with these parts of ourselves that are subject to change, we can diffuse the ego's grip over them. We can diffuse the psychological suffering that is actually 99% of the problem. It's because of false identifications. We are identifying with the wrong parts of who we are. Then most of our suffering is coming from. So I want to get more practical now in the second half of this talk, a little bit less abstract and theoretical. Developing immunity, inner immunity. So for example, by listening to sounds and dissociating from them and their source, just observing the raw quality of the sound in and of itself, as if you have never heard it before, eventually your mind turns it into white noise. You know what I mean by white noise, right? Background noise, meaning you don't even notice it anymore. Now you are immune to all noise in your environment. Next, we do this with the body. For example, during the practice of Kayasterium, a yoga meditation, we focus on actual physical pain as our subject for meditation. This may seem strange to many people. Why focus on pain? Well, because first of all, if you try to push it away and ignore it, what happens? Does that work? No, repressing doesn't work. That's the core message of today's talk. Repressing things does not work. So here's the alternative. Here's what we have to do. By repressing things, it just continues to disturb your meditation. By focusing on it, however, by making it the subject of your meditation and dissociating from it, remembering that this is subject to change and impermanent, therefore not you, then it turns, for example, physical pain will actually turn into heat, and then that heat will just dissipate and dissolve away. And now you've transcended physical pain. And we can do this with all the five senses. We can do this with the conscious thoughts, even the repressed thoughts in the psyche. If you try to tell your mind to be silent and not to think, what happens? When we try this during meditation, we're lucky if we can sit for even a minute in silence. However, if we give our mind permission to ramble on and on, then we can release the mental energy and begin to eventually enjoy greater mental silence. For example, during the practice of Antar, Mouna, which is the other form of meditation I teach after Yoga Nidra, the first stage is listening to sounds and perceiving all sensory stimuli. As if from outside of everything, right? You're just a witness. Rather than being obstacles, all the sounds in your environment are now the subject of your meditation until a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes maximum. And the mind gets really bored of these sounds and doesn't care anymore. Now your neighbor's car alarm doesn't ruin your meditation. Now the barking dog in your environment, it's not disturbing you anymore. In fact, when you learn this kind of radical tolerance, you could be meditating on the platform of a crowded railway station without being the least bit disturbed. In stage 2, you go onto your own thoughts. The object of meditation becomes just random, spontaneous thoughts. And rather than asking the mind to sit still, you insist that it runs and runs and runs. And until finally the mind says, I'm tired of running, I'm good, I'd like to sit down and be still now. So in this way, what I really love about this philosophy and what I really look forward to sharing with you is this philosophy of radical tolerance. Yoga is presenting us with this concept of radical tolerance, where you cannot repress nor exclude anything. You must fully embrace everything that may have otherwise disturbed you. Find out why it bothers you. What is the cause of the issue within yourself? Just be aware of what this is rooted in. It may just be an emotion that you may just have to give yourself permission to release. Intellectually dissecting it may only create artificial relief. You have to give yourself permission sometimes to express that emotional energy. By having the courage to face whatever is within you and to consider all the possible causes within your own personality, you can develop this very mature, higher understanding. See it from your ego's perspective, then see it from as many other perspectives as you can manage. See it from a totally neutral view, as if this is all done and over now. So now what? When you can allow yourself to face whatever you are carrying within your heart, rather than forcing it away and distracting yourself from it, then we do become free from it. And to my surprise, it can actually happen quite quickly. Rather than obsessing on something, rather than rehashing it in your mind again and again, hundreds of times, reliving it in your nervous system every time, we can subject any negative thought or any obsessive thought to this higher neutral awareness developed during our yoga nidra or our meditation. And in that, we can detach from it. We can just see it for how it is, for what it is, diffusing the ego's grip over it, learning whatever we need to learn from it, and then let it go forever. And I really mean forever. When you can bring this higher awareness with you in your meditation, it really doesn't come back when you do this technique correctly. So according to both Western and Eastern philosophy or psychology, actually, brooding is considered to be a leading source of mental illness. One of the causes of mental illness is brooding. Brooding means to think about the same thing, the same memory or thought or even emotion again and again and again. And we are causing these deep ruts in our psyche, which can become the cause of debilitating depression, grief, despair, etc. So yoga nidra and meditation in general, it gives you a platform for setting aside all the roles and responsibilities from all the hats you have to wear in society, to just be human, to just be more than that, to just be the universe in this eternal present now, free from all the definitions and limitations. Yoga nidra gives you a platform for bringing the source of any chronic tension, anxiety, or any disharmony within yourself into the light of awareness to be healed, resolved, and transcended. The only way out is in, they say, right? Repressing things doesn't work. We must ask ourselves, why does this thing bother me so much? Sure, it may be a negative thing in the world, and you may feel justified in not liking it, but why does it get under your skin? Why does it ruffle your feathers the way it does? What is the source of this tension within your own personality? To shed a light into ourselves, to see the cause of our anguish, rather than blaming the world or our genetics or whatever, is a radical change in thinking, and is the cornerstone of self-empowerment, taking responsibility for everything that you are. Now, judging and overanalyzing really doesn't help. When we judge things, like if a disturbing thought comes up and you think, oh, I can't have this kind of a thought. What kind of a person am I if I'm thinking like this? What does this say about what kind of person I am that I'm having this kind of thought, right? This is why we repress, because we're identifying with the wrong parts of who we are. We think we are our thoughts. Most of our thoughts were just imposed on us by society. In fact, next week's class, I'd really like to talk about deprogramming social conditioning. Or if anybody else has a question, then we can maybe talk about that. But that's also a really big obstacle that a lot of us face, is that a lot of us were not conditioned for joy and happiness. We were conditioned to be always hungry customers, consumers, and patients. So therefore, judging and overanalyzing doesn't help. We just need to go on knowing what we are carrying within ourselves and increasing the light of that neutral awareness ever inwards towards ourselves, towards our true nature, illumining every corner of the heart with the healing light of awareness. Because your greatest destiny lies on the other side of that which you fear the most. We must have the courage to look within and to face all the obstacles to our joy, which may be rooted in our personality, false identifications. Only then we can develop the inner harmony necessary to begin to know that profound serenity, bliss, and joy of your own truth. So if you have enjoyed this talk, please consider empowering me by sending a small contribution using the thanks button. If you have any questions you would like answered, you can post them here in the comments section. And yeah, you can ask anything you want. Is it possible to sleep only 3 to 4 hours? Yes, it is. There are yogis who have achieved this. My own guru, Swami Niranjan, went, I think, 2 weeks without sleeping to prove that sleep is a vritti. If you read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it lists 5 categories of vrittis. A vritti is a mental modification. We are modifying the world through our likes and our dislikes, and we're creating our own illusions of reality. And Patanjali gave us 5 categories of these kinds of vrittis, one of which is sleep or Nidra. And so my Guruji Swami Niranjan proved that this is just a modification of the mind. And by maintaining this really higher awareness developed in meditation, we can actually, yes, you can enjoy deeper states of rest through meditation and yoga nidra than even sleep. And that's the key. But, you know, it takes a while to be able to purify your psyche enough to be able to get that kind of deep rest and deep relaxation. It's probably not going to come even in probably the first 6 to 12 months. Depends. Everybody has different karma, meaning different baggage in their psyche we have to purify. But what they say is that just 1 hour of yoga nidra is equivalent to 3 or 4 hours of sleep. So, and that is going into that state of deep rest, because the idea here, the principle behind this is that from awareness comes relaxation. From awareness comes relaxation. For example, right now, if I tell all that's listening, if I say, just become aware of your muscles of respiration right now, just turn your awareness to the muscles that you use to breathe in this moment. I don't even have to say the word relax, right? Just by becoming aware to the muscles of respiration, awareness is a natural result. So by maintaining awareness instead of going to sleep, you can actually achieve much deeper, much greater relaxation, right? And so now you're getting better, deeper relaxation and rest than even sleep. And just 2, or if you can do 3 hours in that state of yoga nidra, then you can potentially get even greater rest than sleep. And that is the purpose of sleep, according to yoga, at least. We just need to have that recharge, that cosmic recharge. And you can get it by going into the state of yoga nidra, which we'll also talk about that. I'd like to do a talk talking about the technique of yoga nidra versus the state of yoga nidra, because they are different. So thank you, Vejito Eternity, for that question. I also want to pose some questions from last week here. Harisami asked, a question on the repressed emotions surfacing. Can it happen even later to yoga nidra sessions? Can it happen even during sleep later? So first of all, repressed emotions, these can come up at any time during our yoga nidra session. It's most likely to happen in the intermediate stage of yoga nidra. We can understand that there's the 3 stages of yoga nidra. And also 3 levels, right? So the first stage of yoga nidra is just nidra, meaning sleep, in which we put the body to sleep. That's what the body scan achieves. By doing the body scan, we effectively put our body to sleep. And we achieve this state of physical sleep. Physical sleep is achieved while you stay awake. That's the first state of yoga nidra, right? And in that state, we are achieving total physical rest. However, it is the second state, which is called conscious dreaming. The conscious dreaming stage of yoga nidra is when you are awake in the dream state and you're purifying the psyche. You're seeing all sorts of visions. You're having abstract associations to things that the instructor is naming. Abstract associations are things where, for example, if I say palm tree, one person just sees a palm tree and a beach, but the next person remembers some traumatic memory that they had falling out of a palm tree. And maybe that was the last family vacation with a certain family member. And all of a sudden they start feeling grief. And they don't know where this grief is coming from just by saying the word palm tree. That's an abstract association. And this kind of abstract associations, if we can become aware of it and know that we're having an abstract association and just let it purify, just let it out, not repress it, because repressing doesn't work. If you can face it, let it out, give yourself permission to express it, then it's purifying. This kind of awareness is purifying, right? Higher awareness. And so it can happen at any time. The third stage, just to finish this thought, is true yoga nidra, the state of yoga nidra. And this is when we are in that hypnagogic state between sleep and dreaming, where you're awake, but you're in the deep sleep state. If you could imagine what it would be like to be in that deep, deep sleep state, but to be awake for that, to know that bliss, that's the state of yoga nidra. Conscious unconsciousness, you can think of it as. But when it comes to purifying the psyche, to purifying repressed emotions, that's most likely to happen during this conscious dreaming stage of yoga nidra, which would be like the visualization sequence, when you hear a long list of different items. And this is why, by the way, sometimes unpleasant things are described during yoga nidra, like a corpse or like a funeral pyre, or you may be asked to visualize yourself nude in the snow or something like this. Why do we have these kinds of odd visualizations during yoga nidra? It's kind of meant to be a trigger. It is meant to be a trigger, because if it disturbs you, if it ruffles your feather, if it gets on your skin, you have to ask yourself why, right? Yeah, these things may be negative, they may be unpleasant, but why does it bother you the way it does? And so we have these reactions during yoga nidra, and becoming aware of those previously unconscious reactions is a form of purification. This is psychological purifying, to bring what was previously unconscious in the psyche into the light of consciousness. Vegito, we have telomores in our body. Tremors, telomores, they are like thread, but they get sort of cell regeneration does. If we control our body by yoga, can we stop aging? Can we stop aging? Okay, yeah, that's a great question. This is actually a topic that I am preparing quite a bit of material on, because yes, it is possible to reverse actually the aging process. And this is what a lot of yoga is actually concerned with. If you see pictures of yogis from back in the day, they are just like that. They look always young. They always look young, right? And even today, I've known yogis. I met one yogi in Rishikesh, who he was in his 50s, but he looked like he was 29 or something like this. But anyway, but that is mostly achieved through Kriya Yoga. The main thing, if you're really interested in reverse aging, it's really important to start to learn some kind of sublimation technique like Kriya Yoga. And really the key there is nivritti instead of pravritti. Pravritti is when we are externally oriented to the world, when we're going from spirit to the objects of the senses, which is 99% of the world. We are externally oriented. Our desire is externally oriented through the objects, through the senses to the objects of the senses, right? That's called pravritti, externalization. Nivritti is internalization, where you are seeking desire within. You are going from the objects of the senses and the gross world inward, subtle, towards the self, towards spirit. And this is when people switch to nivritti, they become minimalists. Less is more is the phrase, right? Because you don't need all these outer distractions. You are starting to experience true causal bliss from your own true nature during meditation or during yoga nidra, or just because your awareness is evolving. And so that's the main thing, is because when we are externally oriented, when our desire is externally oriented, we're going to waste our prana. And so before we even start thinking about doing any kind of superhuman yogic techniques, which are definitely out there, we first have to fix this problem of habitual externalization of desire and introvert desire within. And then when you do that, it enriches everything else. The lie that the ego wants to tell you is that if you introvert desire, you're giving up on life. You might as well die, right? You're giving up on the world. That's not true. When we are seeking satisfaction outside of ourselves, that's like a string of zeros, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. But when we find satisfaction and the source of satisfaction and contentment within ourselves, that's the one. And then everything else that we have in the world outside of us is now there's something in front of that string of zeros, which otherwise it's all worthless. So there was a Swami I lived with in Rikiya ashram, Dr. Swami Yog Pratap. And he told us like this. He said, before you worry about filling up a bucket with water, first you have to patch all the holes. Right? And so there's a lot of preliminary work that we have to do. And I would even say that when we do that inner work, then it kind of solves everything for you. Now you're going to have more vitality. You're going to have more prana. You're going to have longer longevity, theoretically. Great question, Vegito. Thank you. Final question came from Falk Winditz. She said, what is your knowledge, insight regarding hypnagogia? Why do some practitioners experience it and others not? Some share that after mastering wake-induced dreaming through hypnagogia stays naturally off and they arrive directly at a so-called midway point. Another question, if I might ask, is there any difference in OBE and lucid dreaming? Okay, so let's talk about hypnagogia first. So the state of yoga nidra is synonymous with the hypnagogic state. The hypnagogic state, for those of you who are not familiar, is the state between dreaming and wakefulness. When you are awake in the dream state. So it's an in-between state, right? And this is what we were talking about. If you could have some awareness present during that deep sleep state, and you could know that bliss, that would be, that is what we are talking about when we talk about bliss in yoga. Anandam, the Sanskrit word anandam, bliss, it's not something foreign to you. You experience that pure bliss every night in deep sleep, but we're not conscious, we're not aware. Our consciousness is dormant during deep sleep. If you could have some consciousness present during that deep sleep, can you even imagine how revitalizing, how rejuvenating, how blissful, how amazing it would be to experience that deep sleep state while awake? That is a hypnagogic state. That is yoga nidra, the state of yoga nidra. And that is what we do the practice of yoga nidra to experience. So to just answer the question for you, as just a bonus, we don't even need to do another talk on it. What is the difference between the state of yoga nidra and the practice of yoga nidra? The practice of yoga nidra has 8 steps, which is meant to deliver you to the state of yoga nidra. So the practice is meant to lead you to the state. And the state of yoga nidra, this is that hypnagogic state. It's synonymous, so it's the same thing. And the second part of her question was, is there any difference in OBE and lucid dreaming, judging from your own experience? Okay, I kind of like this question because OBE, out-of-body experiences, are actually extremely rare, to be totally honest with you all. However, astral projection is not. We do astral projection all the time. It's that lucid part of you that's not physical. The astral is the state of pure potentiality. Everything is happening potentially on the astral dimension, and then it becomes definite in the physical dimension. We access that all the time. When you dream, you access the astral dimension. When you daydream, when you imagine, we are constantly in contact with that dimension, the astral dimension. So astral projection is quite easy, and you can do it without feeling like you've left your body, even when you get good at it. And you can receive messages from astral entities around you and things like this very easily as you become more sensitive to the astral dimension. However, OBEs, out-of-body experiences, my opinion, from what I've researched, this is actually a very rare, a real full-on OBE is actually quite rare. We hear stories of like Adi Shankara. He was able to do this. Not only was Adi Shankara able to leave his body, he actually inhabited the body of another. But I mean, these are such rare beings who can achieve something like this. Not to say that it can't be done, and not to say that it doesn't happen sometimes spontaneously for example, near-death experiences. People talk about having OBE experiences in the hospital bed. Many people, probably, I'm sure several listeners, have had their own OBE experiences. So although when I say it's rare, what I mean is that it's rare to master this as a skill that you can do consciously. But lucid dreaming and astral projection, this is all quite simple, quite easy to learn, and you can start to have success with it very quickly. I've created a series for you on this channel called Astral Nidra, and the first one is probably the best, to be honest. Astral bodybuilding. So take one more question from Vejito. Guruji, how to stop OCD, intrusive thoughts? These thoughts are not me, and by no way. I secretly ponder on these thoughts, but because of my OCD, these intrusive thoughts keep coming. So, great question. Thank you for this. And this is actually related to the discussion that we just had, right? And to the slide that I'm still sharing. It's all related. Is then intrusive thoughts will not go away by wishing them to go away. And they also don't go away by obsessing on them and by brooding on them over and over again. So what's the solution, right? It seems like a catch-22. I can't force them away. And if I just obsess processing them, they don't go away. I just lost my microphone. Give me 1 second. There, it's back. So what's the solution? Now it's back. What is the solution? If we can't repress it, and if just obsessing on it doesn't work, is there an alternative between repressing and obsessing? What is it? What is it? What is the alternative to repressing and obsessing? We have to be able to look at it from a detached third-party perspective, a higher, neutral, detached awareness, simply to know. It's like this note-taking process is going on. Oh, okay, there's that thought. Oh, okay, now this thought. Oh, now that habitual thought has returned. Oh, now there's this voice. I know that voice. That's that voice that tells me that I'm this. That's the voice that tries to tell me that I'm that. Oh, I'm running that script. I know that script. That script came from my father, or that script came from my teachers, or from my religion, or whatever, a best friend in high school. Just doing this kind of internal inventory and not judging yourself. The practice here is to bring what was previously repressed in the shadows of the psyche into the light of conscious awareness. And that's really it. We could finish this whole talk by just saying awareness is the summum bonum of therapy and spiritual life. I'd even say it's all a matter of awareness, transitioning from what you don't know that you know to knowing what you know. Because you already know all of this, but we don't know that we know this sometimes, right? So we have to become aware that we know. So transitioning from unconscious reactiveness to conscious self-control. So instead of reacting, and that's your karma, right? We react because of our karmas, our default dispositions, our default tendencies, our default reactions to things. And in the beginning, you just have to just go on knowing these things. I don't even really think that it helps to label them like OCD and things like this. I'm not even sure that it's useful. I think then, it can help to know. And yeah, so it's good because you have to know what you're going through. But we have, sometimes the reason is that sometimes by labeling something, we can just dismiss it now. We've put it in its category, and now we can shelf it, right? And so by labeling things, we are dismissing them, and we're not really looking at them. We're not really processing them and seeing what's behind this. So be careful with labeling things, right? Judging, labeling, categorizing, this does not help. What we have to do is just have the courage just to allow this repressed energy to bubble up to the surface and to repress it. Intellectualizing really only brings artificial relief. by intellectualizing, understanding it too much, even Freudian psychoanalysis. This is just artificial relief. We have to have the courage to experience it emotionally and energetically. And then we divest it of prana, like we talked about last week, right? Everything that we repress takes a certain amount of prana. And by allowing yourself to have the permission to let it express itself during the safety of your meditation practice, you are de-investing it with a certain amount of prana. Prana means momentum. Prana literally means constant motion. So by allowing that prana to be expressed, it now has less prana, it now has less momentum in your psyche, right? So really, just having the courage to let yourself feel this stuff. Just let it all out. Not judging it, not overanalyzing it, not thinking that, oh, what does this say about me? What kind of person am I to have these kinds of thoughts? No, most of this stuff, it has been imposed on you by your culture and your society. It's not really you or your parents or your friends or your teachers or whatever. And so we have to disidentify from it, realize this is subject to change. This is impermanent, therefore not self. This too shall pass. And we have to give it permission to bubble up so then it can go, because the only way out is in, and repressing doesn't work. So we have to go into meditation, develop that deep inner tranquility. We have to let our nerves rest, right? Because when we're rehashing this and when we're brooding, our nerves are tense. We're looking at it only from our egotistical side. And this is just making it worse. But when we can detach in meditation, and you have deep relaxation, both on your breath and on your body and mentally, then you can look at this, you can diffuse the ego's attachment to it. You can just look at whatever this thought, this disturbing thought, or these intrusive thoughts, as you said, you can just look at them for what they are, just as they are. Okay, now what? Now let's just let it go. Learn from it, grow from it, and transcend it, let it go. So to finalize and to finish this discussion, having the courage to face whatever we're carrying within our hearts is a new way of thinking. And there's not a whole lot of other places that you're going to hear this message, because society definitely does not teach us this. Society teaches us to put our best face forward and to just continue repressing. So to have the courage to face what you're really feeling within you and to let it out. Stop holding it within you. Let it out during your meditation. I say that again and again, during your meditation, because during daily life out in the public, we have so many hats we have to wear. We have so many responsibilities. We have our dharma to perform out in the world. So we do have to maintain our composure. And when we lose our composure out in the world, it becomes easier and easier, and it happens more and more often, right? It's like our integrity slowly becomes frayed. So don't lose your composure out in public. But in the safety of your meditation, in the safety of your yoga nidra practice, you can let yourself feel 200%. And I mean that. Sometimes I actually exaggerate whatever I'm feeling because I want to get it all out. Just get it all out. Hold nothing back. Allow it to bubble up and to burst. And if you cry, and if you laugh, you don't even know why, thank God, hallelujah. And this is how we start to harmonize, to bring more harmony and consonance and resolution to our psyche, so that that natural bliss and contentment and serenity of your own true nature can just beam forth from your heart without the distortions and without the modifications. So another question. Wonderful. Brain fog. It seems to be the human condition, you guys. Don't be so hard on yourself. We are all tamasic. We all get brain fog, and we all lose focus. It seems to be the human condition. Even a dog, even a horse, and especially an elephant They seem to have a better memory than human beings, but human beings, we're rather short-sighted. We lose focus quite easily. So this is why discipline becomes so incredibly important. Is through discipline, we can maintain these systems in our life that help us to maintain balance, right? And so discipline in your yoga practice is called what? Bonus points. I will give much kudos to anybody who can tell me the Sanskrit word for discipline in your yoga practice. Regularity in daily yogic practice, which is super, super important. What is it called? Yogis. Starts with an A, ends with a Abhyas. Abhyas. Abhyas is constant, regular practice. So it's not enough to do yoga 2 or 3 times a week. If you want to have the higher fruits of yoga, it needs to be good sadhana. That's good. I'll take that. If we're going to want to have the higher fruits of yoga, it needs to be a result of who you are every day. Very good. Vejito, Abhyas. It has to be the result of who you are every day, right? We can't technique our way to God. We can't technique our way to the ultimate. It's not like you're just going to chant a certain amount of mantras and just wake up in heaven. We have to create heaven on earth every day through our way of being, through our way of living, through who you are. You have to create the cause. And then all the higher fruits of yoga are the effect. And what helps us to do that is abhyas. So just practice your sadhana daily, whatever your sadhana currently is, do it daily. And practices for the body are very important, activating the body, and concentration practices as well. Things like tratak. Before your studies, you're saying that you're having problems in studies. So practices like tratak can very much help you. Discipline will also very much help you. Tratak, for those of you who don't know, is fixed point gazing, focusing on a single point like a candle flame or a yantra or even a black dot on a white sheet of paper. This helps to improve concentration. And also save your energy. Things like scrolling through social media and things like that uses more energy than maybe you're aware of. This kind of mental cerebral energy actually consumes a lot of energy. And we're using a lot more of our energy doing things that we think is just recreational and neutral than we know. So especially if you're in your studies, if you're a student, try to reserve your prana, conserve your prana, and use your prana responsibly like it's your greatest form of wealth. So if you've enjoyed this talk, you can hit the thanks button or just give a like. And also in the description for every video is the link for next week's video. And so you can join the Zoom session if you want to actually join the Zoom. And what I do is 5 minutes beforehand, I launch the Zoom to make sure everything's ready to go. So we can even have some discussions and talk just beforehand. And the link is there for you. And there's so much more great content to come on this channel. I'm so grateful for all of you, for your attendance, for your participation, and for making this channel what it is. And thank you very much for joining me in today's discussion on developing immunity. And I really love this philosophy in yoga of radical tolerance, where we have to learn how to embrace everything, especially in our meditation, to bring everything, include everything into your meditation so that nothing disturbs you anymore. We can't push away or try to force away anything. Eventually, we have to include everything in the universe into our meditation. And this is also developing this kind of internal immunity so that things are not bothering you, things do not disturb you, noises and other things in your environment that otherwise you would have felt like it ruined your meditation, No, when you can approach it like this, everything is included, everything is brought in, everything is a part of your meditation. With great love and great respect, I thank you with all my heart. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om.